Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace to the rest of you. Black Heart Son, I'm black in a second time for part 2. Look, in the last one, I pointed out how it is that at the end of the day, sisters will level this argument that black men don't build, and that's why they can't show us respect, and then completely ignore the fact or even not know that in other communities you've got men that aren't building, and that actually in other nations the men are not better than African American men. What I will say though is that in this half I'm going to point something else out, and that is this. In the African American community, there's a penalty for being a man who can build and innovate. In the white European American community, there is also a penalty for men who can build and innovate, especially at a young age. What is different between the two is the levels of this stuff. In the African American community, the penalty is a bit exaggerated. It starts a bit earlier, it's more severe, and it lasts a bit later into adulthood. That's what it is. So them white folk ain't innocent. I'm just telling you though that at the end of the day, when it comes down to us, we're a bit more guilty internally speaking. And when I say we, I can't point this finger at brothers, because brothers ain't looking and holding a woman's innovative or constructive abilities against her. It's just that either she's still attractive or she's not, and even that's subjective. One woman that's not attractive to another guy could still be attractive to another guy. And the man that does find her attractive is not necessarily automatically shamed for it. Men are only shamed when they find inappropriately young girls attractive, women that are 300 pounds or more attractive, crippled women attractive, women at some sort of serious disadvantage. I mean, if I'm only attracted to paraplegic women in wheelchairs, somebody's going to stop and say, well, you know, Blackheart has a problem. He likes women that can't run away from him. He likes women that can't vote with their feet because they don't have use of their legs. You see, in that case, I get it. There would be a shaming thing going on there, and it would still be in defense of the woman. But for the most part, black women can be skinny. They can be thick. They can even be big. They can be medium-sized. They can be tall or short. A man is not shamed by other men for finding them attractive in many cases. You start taking women and men in our community, and a man who can innovate and construct, if he has this ability and the women know it, then he better be abnormally wealthy and tall and muscular to compensate for that. Then it's okay. But if he is a normal looking man, even if he's normally looking but still, if he's normal looking but still attractive otherwise, but just not exceptionally attractive, if he is normally attractive and he has constructive or innovative capabilities and the community finds out, then he is still whitelisted, so to speak. And by whitelisted, I mean that not only will sisters not give him the time of day, but they will shame the sisters who actually are interested in him if they find out. So you let this man, now, there's no shame. When a woman sleeps with a thug, nobody embarrasses her for it. No one says a damn thing. We don't feel comfortable for it. And I don't just mean a street dude that's adjusted. I'm talking straight thug, breaking the law, nigga trifling, idness. Woman sleeps with that, so what? No biggie. But a woman sleeps with a man that has innovative and constructive abilities, and there's nothing to compensate for it, then no, she gets embarrassed about it. If there's a rumor, she gets embarrassed about it. If she talks to him too nicely and too politely, and somebody thinks they might be screwing, there's a rumor about it, she gets embarrassed about it. I've seen this happen. And I saw a man in a group say that when it comes down to this gender relationships between men and women, that each one is trying to get the most out of the other in exchange for the least. that might be the case in the teenage years, and I don't accept the idea of diminished responsibility for the decisions of teenagers anyway, except where it comes down to actual experience or inexperience. I don't accept this idea of diminished responsibility purely on a moral basis, because I don't believe that teens have less of a capacity to know right from wrong. I know that teens know right from wrong. We just socialize them to not fibbaguk. But that may be true for the teens. It's not necessarily the case when it comes into adulthood, because men understand that you can't get the best out of a woman in exchange for your lease. Most men understand this. That's part of the blue pill understanding. And that's because the blue pill was real for the majority of men. Until, of course, super select guys, or sperm preferred guys, as Mr. Anderson would call them, start to talk about how little they have to do in order to get how much, and then can show you some of the receipts. They can show you the text messages, the videotapes, the confessions from the women themselves even. They can show you, hell, you see them with different women all the time. And then you have reason to believe them. That's when a lot of these normal men become red-pilled. And that's also when a lot of these normal men come to understand that no, it's not the same. No, these women are sitting up playing that game with most dudes, and then turning around and playing the opposite game with a few dudes. I.e., how much can I give this dude because he gives nothing? It's in the Western communities as a whole, like I've said. White folks ain't no better, or they're not exempt from this, but we've exaggerated it. That's true. We have exaggerated this. And that's why I don't cut us any slack. So, sisters, I wanted to say that the other argument, or the other response to your argument, is that, plain and simply put, those of you who say black men don't build are not exactly chasing after the black men who do build. And many of you don't know what you're talking about. Actually, if you say that, you don't know what you're talking about. And then you got a lot of sisters, and you're a disgrace to those other sisters that don't say this, because they know that black men build as much and don't build as much as other men build and don't build. And you sitting up here making a damn fool of yourself. Black men don't build. You know goddamn well that collectively speaking, you don't reward black men who build and innovate. And when I say reward, yes, I'm also talking about with the pussy. The only reason I got to bring it back to that is because many of you would say we're only talking about rewarding them with sex, to which I would have to say yes, but what did you say you were going to reward? What are you saying you're not rewarding, even though we know it's not true? And why is that something that you are withholding? I mean, if it's something that's just, if it's a free-for-all and it's not a reward, then you would treat it like it's a free-for-all and not a reward. No, what we're saying is that the majority of ADOS women, especially if they're in any good physical shape, are rewarding the worst men with the pussy. You're waiting on men to start liking being celibate, and men can do it, but you can't expect men to turn around and like it, and you can't expect it to be healthy either. And you're waiting on men to change and prefer celibacy based on how you think that these men look. And that's not the way the game works. You don't accept this for yourself. You don't accept that a woman should change her attitude towards celibacy based on how men feel that she looks. You don't sit up and tell women, well, you're ugly, so you should just go and live celibate for the rest of your life. Maybe teenagers might do that, but adult women ain't walking around telling each other this. They're not even walking around saying, well, you know what, you're mean to men. Well, you let yourself get 300 pounds with a piss poor diet and no exercise. Or even worse, well, I mean, you weigh 90 pounds soaking wet because you got on that crack and lost weight, or you got on that meth and lost everything. And you don't look any different from a skinny man. Y'all don't even say these things to each other based on what women have control over. So, but when it comes to men that you don't want, and it's most men that you don't want, normal men you see as below average, you want to tell these men that they're supposed to actually just go ahead and tolerate being celibate. But if a woman calls them to do stuff like fix things, move, build and innovate and repair and maintain things, they should be happy to do it for nothing in exchange for celibacy. No, ain't the way that works. It's not how that works. Because at the end of the day, when we come to understand not just your nature, but female nature in general, we also come to understand what you would do as Western women, because you're allowed to run free with the worst instincts and even develop the worst instincts, thereby developing a worse nature than other women. By indulging the worst instincts, we see what you would be allowed to do and what you would do if you're allowed to. And if you could, you would take every man that you don't find to be select, and you would have them pay every financial and emotional price for you to just have the babies with the guys that are pretty much human dildos. Emotionally unavailable, but dildos, ding-a-lings at work. And you would tolerate that. You'd be okay with it. You got no problem if men were just told that they should accept your child by men you knew weren't even supposed to be fathers. But then when you realize that those are the only options available to your sons, and that you probably ain't gonna have your own grandkids through your sons because of what the socialization is like, that's when you start having something to say about it. That's when you start deciding that you're going to go back to what's traditionalism, and we don't have time for that. Women should not have to wait until they have sons to understand how it is that men are being pretty much handed and told to be grateful for the worst mating options out there, period. Black men don't build, when the actual truth is you punish more than any other woman the men in your community who can and do build. I hope this has been of benefit. Assalamu alaikum. Black Heart sign and black out.